Welcome back to Open Studio. It's the series where we have honest conversations with designers and studio founders about the creative industry and what it actually looks like from the inside. Today, I am on the mic with my co-conspirator, Yas Banks. Yas is a graphic designer based in Manchester with over 5 years of experience. You work across arts, culture, hospitality, fashion, entertainment, running your own studio, Say Studio. Did I get that right? Is it Say Studio?
We're kind of gravitating into Say Studio, yeah.
We're gravitating.
Yeah. We're freelance at the moment, but we're wanting to kind of build it into that. So.
Well, a studio can just be one person,
It can.
So
it can.
It just makes it sound bigger, right? But so Yas is also community social coordinator here at Shillington, one of the people behind this very series. So it only felt right to put you on the spot and welcome you to your own show. So before we get into the big questions, I think people should know a bit more about who they're listening to. Yeah, you've got your freelance practice that you've been building up and you're working towards building that into a studio. You're based in Manchester.
Yes.
What does your working life sort of look like right now, day to day?
It varies massively. I've got about 3 or 4 different projects on the go at the moment. That varies from ad hoc mailers for property development sites all the way to branding a podcast series. So it is literally anything and everything. That is kind of where I wanted to go with my practice. I have kind of niched down a little bit more in the past year or so, but that being said, I don't say kind of no to anything. I kind of want to keep building my skill set because you never know where the right opportunity kind of lies and what one project could lead into kind of the dream client and the dream opportunities. So yeah, I'm vast clientele and vast kind of skill set in that sense, and always wanting to do more and more and more.
Yes, exactly. Well, okay, let's imagine a scenario. You're at a family barbecue. And someone's brought their new partner to the barbecue, and you're in that first bit of conversation, like say, so what do you do? How do you describe what you do to someone that is maybe not in the industry or your first meeting?
I describe myself, I'm a designer. I don't really like the junior, the mid, the senior label, because especially being self-employed and freelance, I kind of do it all. I step into teams sometimes and I say, I'm kind of like that substitute teacher vibe. So I like, if they need extra support in something, I can be a junior to someone or a senior to someone if they need a little bit more direction or strategy, so to speak. Apart from that, I do also have my own clients, and I like to introduce it as like, if they don't know what design is, which feels mental to say, but it's just like anything you see, a poster, you're driving home, you see in a billboard, you see in a poster, whatever, like it's everything. So I'm like, I can kind of sit in anywhere, and I have my own clients to develop branding and skill set in that sense.
That's like something that's always stuck in my mind. One of the first times I ever went over to my now wife's like family sort of Christmas thing. The granddad was like, so what do you do? And I said, oh, I'm a graphic designer. And I think I probably mumble at the best of times, right? But I've maybe had like a couple of glasses of wine because I was a bit nervous. So I was like, oh, I'm a graphic designer. And he completely misheard what I said, but I didn't realize this until like late, like as the day went on. He was asking me all these like strange questions. I just thought I was like, what's he talking about? He was asking me about like the flow of water, health and safety, and theme parks. And I was like, why are you asking me about this stuff? And then he said, and then I think it's like Pip's uncle or something. He was like, so do you know? So it's like, do you know he designs like log flumes and like rapids? And I was like, huh? And he thought I said rapid designer. And then just like in his brain was just like, right, that's a cool job.
That's so funny.
But like somehow for like hours of the day, like I hadn't cottoned on to that until like way later. I was like, that's great. So yeah, I mean, it is funny, but I mean, that does also sound like a pretty cool job, right?
It does. It does.
Especially if you get to test ride them.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it's always interesting when you have those conversations with people that don't really know what graphic design is. Like I said, like even though it is everywhere, you on your phone and things like that, it's literally everywhere, but they don't understand that someone does that and there's a person behind that. So it's always interesting to kind of have them conversations, be like, no, that is me. I do that. I bring that to life and things like that. And there are more of us out there. It's not just a really niche job.
Well, but then, you know, people will say, I always wanted to do that, but I wasn't creative. Or like I was like shit at art or something like that, which is, it's heartbreaking because you're like, someone in your life didn't back you or didn't show you that there was this kind of career opportunity, or that you don't have to be what you think a creative person is. And, you know, something we've been talking about a lot behind the scenes, right? This myth of the perfect creative, this idea that like good designers just kind of know the work like arrives like fully formed. You know, we both know it's not true. And I'm always really interested to because, you know, in my job and like my career as a teacher, I wanted to actually total up the amount of like projects I've like worked on.
Yeah.
But I lost control and I was like, there's just so much work I've seen. And I suppose like, because I've seen so much, and probably for a lot of other designers out there as well, the outcome is not, to me, it's definitely not important at all. Like the finished thing, like the process is the thing that gets me excited, how you got from A to B.
Yeah.
And I'm always interested asking people the same question, which is like, what is your working process? Do you have like and I know that's a difficult question because it's going to change from a small project to a big project, but like, let's take a branding project. Like you talked about that podcast, your branding, right?
Yeah.
Can we share what that is yet, or is it still under wraps?
Still kind of under wraps, still in the ideation stage.
Okay, so what's the ideation stage? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, so it's just a lot of research, and something I really enjoy to explain to clients is a lot of social listening, really being engaged with what is out there already. So whether that is taking inspiration from that or kind of being able to take that and then form something fresh and new that will stand the test of time, will stand the trends, and will stand kind of pushing and becoming a successful brand, and will in 5 years' time someone won't want to refresh it or redo it or rebrand it. So that comes from a lot of research and a lot of thinking and asking and really getting to know different audiences, different people that they think that will be involved and interested in the product. So for example, a podcast, for a podcast studio, that's what I can say about it, but it'll host a variety of different podcasts, so lifestyle to cooking and anything kind of in between that, like relationships, like anything you can think of. A lot of people will come to this podcast studio, so it's about enticing them in, they're an audience, but equally engaging those listeners across social media and engaging those. So it's kind of two-way kind of situation, and that work in process and researching and getting to grips with who those people are, that's the key. That is where I like to start, and I like to really listen and see what's working and what maybe I don't feel like is working, and even then the client kind of won't see this thinking. They'll hear it, but they won't see it. And then from that research, we'll go into ideation and concepts, even before the kind of collaborative side starts, and sitting on a call or meeting in person and things like that, and properly kind of developing any thoughts and feelings. And obviously the client are the expert, but also I'm the expert in bringing things to life, and it's working both ways in that sense.
Will some clients come to you with research that they've had someone else do for them, or like that they've done themselves as well at the start of a brief like that?
I've had a couple before kind of come and be, they've done like a mood board and they've seen what has worked before or hasn't worked before as successfully, but a lot of the time they can see even past projects that I've worked on that I've kind of worked from the bottom up with a lot of people. Like I'll work with quite a few startups or charities and things like that that don't really have that set in stone, like the strategy or things like that behind what they want to develop. So I can kind of work both ways in having these conversations and asking questions and things like that. So yeah, it can work both ways. I have had people in the past come to me and be like, I've got a really rough mood board, or this is the idea behind XYZ. Can you run with it? And I like those kind of briefs where they are open, but also it is nice to have a little bit of a leeway at the start. So I know that I'm going down kind of the right path. It may not end up, the final outcome may not end up in that right path, and the mood board might not end up looking like the final product. And I always lead by that. I'm like, it might, and you might not like something I developed and things like that. That's what I like, the collaborative kind of aspect in that sense too.
When was the last time that you sort of completely threw something away and started again? Like, does that ever happen?
I do it quite often, not in the way of like second guessing myself, but more so. So, for example, like ad hoc kind of mailers I'm working on with the property development client, I can, if I'm in the zone, they'll take me 1 or 2 hours. So I can be in the zone in that sense, but then I can step away, work on something else, jump on something else, come back and think, oh, that layout's not working, images aren't working, and I'll scrap it and start again. And because I know they don't take that long to do, I'm quite confident in doing that. Longer term projects, I like to initiate like the conversation with the client when I'm doing ideation quite quickly, just to like blow away any questions I've got, any queries, any worries, so to know I'm kind of heading in that right direction. Obviously, two people can read a brief so differently, and especially on a longer term project or bigger project like a branding project, can see it can look differently in so someone might have a certain idea and I might have a different idea. So it might come, I present a couple of ideas and they think maybe not, so then I would scrap it, restart, let's say, start fresh. That's really rare that happens on those longer term. It is more kind of the shorter, the quick, but it's always super important to kind of give yourself that time to step away if you're not finding that things are working out, and you can come back with a fresh set of eyes and really see that a little bit of a layout isn't fitting well or feeling. But
that critical eye that you've developed for yourself is also that's what they're also hiring you for, right? You're the expert. You're able to come in and sort of analyze what's working and not working, but you know, that kind of critical eye, that confidence that you have in that, like that can then sometimes be the thing that people think is what's called, like, you know, a naturally talented designer. Well, I think that idea of a naturally talented designer is what causes a lot of damage. I think it's what causes a lot of people not believing and trusting in themselves or having the confidence to begin that journey, which then in itself has issues with inclusivity and like the design culture in itself. So, you know, what's your view on that? Have you ever thought about how you ended up where you ended up, and like what did you have to do to get to this point? Like, do you think any of it is based on you and something natural that's in you, or is there more to it than that?
I think I'm a very problem-solving type character as it is, and I think that's what really kind of plays into being the naturally talented designer. I think it's such a kind of interesting kind of term to like use, and you kind of hear it like you within like thinking back when I was a student and looking at student briefs and talking to tutors and things like that, like it kind of popped up in conversation, and like you kind of just, oh, you naturally got it, you naturally understood it, like you don't need to worry, which is great. But I just think it's so interesting that there's probably a little bit deeper in that, in terms of your environment, your influences. If you're in the world, you go to galleries, you go to theatre shows, you're engaged in different types of live music, posters, like merch. Like, without thinking it, you can be so involved in it and so immersed, and it just kind of does feel natural. But because you're inspired everywhere you go, and things like that, and understanding how, and want to understand how things work. So, for example, getting a flyer through the post and thinking, why has that caught my eye over a load of other junk mail? Why is that, like, why does that image work? Why does that type work? But maybe when you...
Or why does it not work?
Why does it not work? Yeah, definitely. But when you kind of first in it, you probably don't understand that's what's catching your eye or not catching your eye. But yeah, it's that inquisitiveness, it's that problem solving, it's that curiosity. I think that's kind of the key part to developing and want to learning and want to know more and want to progress your skills, and feeling like and seeming like you are naturally talented, but behind the scenes it is a lot of kind of a question asking and being engaged in a slightly different way that maybe you don't quite know that you are.
Were you naturally quite curious as a kid? Like, were you a bit of a collector?
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Yeah, even looking around, like, even I'm now, like, my desk, like, I've got things around everywhere, and I'm a huge collector. And even as a child, I used to collect little figures and understand, like, love the packaging and just really like to be involved in, like, just the little things that I didn't even know that was going to progress into becoming a designer, becoming a creative. But I always wanted to. I knew I always wanted to be creative. That was kind of ticked me in school and in education and as a younger kid even. And I know that that's definitely had an influence.
Was that in school? Was that because the alternative felt difficult, or felt like it was like what in that school moment? Because this is what I'm like, this is really what I'm most interested in, the curriculum at school. Right, and how people have opportunities to see that creativity inside that they maybe don't realize. We know funding's going in many places. We know that, like, all these things are happening, and there's not like the after school. I used to have an after school club where we tried to build a robot for Robot Wars. How mad is we got a lawnmower and we got like a record player, and then we were trying to and we just had like a teacher that would like stay behind and run it. And I built like a box to steam. It was like a metal box that we then put steam in, and I steamed some plywood. I made a skateboard. Like, how mad is that? And like that's like that, but that just basically relied on this one really sweet like art teacher who wrote a Harley Davidson, pretty cool. But he just like after school club. I don't think you have to pay for it even. I think you just how mad's that? Just did it, and just was like, don't worry, like, use it, whatever equipment you can, bring stuff in from home if you can, tools and stuff, But that's not, that I was so lucky in that. But that's not, everyone doesn't have that opportunity. So for you though, like, what was there a moment in school? Was there a reason that drew you towards that, other than just that kind of curiosity?
I really enjoyed school and kind of getting to grips with everything, but I was always that creative kid. I always looked forward to it, even if it's like primary school or going to high school, senior school. I always looked forward to them creative lessons, and if we were able to, like you say, bring things in, or you were working on something away from sitting and writing and sitting and doing maths and sums and science. And there was I was good at everything. Like, I left school with good grades, but what really interested me and what really made me look forward to stepping into that world of education was, we had photography, we had media studies, and it was my media studies teacher that I always remember. Like, I see him around because I live where I went to school and things like that still, so I see him around occasionally. And he will ask me, like, how's things going, blah blah blah. And when I tell him, like, oh, what I'm doing, I'm a graphic designer, I'm self-employed, he was like, I always knew you were going to be self-employed because you weren't, not necessarily stubborn, but you were like, I will do it my way, and it will be my way, and I will make it, and I'll figure it out kind of, and be creative in that way. And I remember, he definitely was kind of that push into understanding and knowing that even as a media studies, kind of learning the world of the media at that time and how that impacts everything creatively and things like that. That was a huge kind of push into what I wanted to do. So it wasn't even like the traditional fine art or art or anything like that. It was more of that side of things that always created like made me curious and kind of inspired and things like that. And yeah, that was definitely a big push into the world of where I am now. 100%.
That's so cool. Shout out to your media studies teacher. We've all I think maybe that is true of most designers, is there's maybe that one person that sort of backs your corner or sees something in you that you can't see. It's so amazing, like how that, and that's why it's so important to keep that. It's so important. I think there's a new curriculum happening in the next couple of years because they're looking at AI and all these sorts of things.
Yeah,
I really hope that and one of the things I was reading about was actually critical thinking is like going to come into curriculum more, which sounds great in principle. Like, let's see how they roll it out. But like, maybe there'll be a whole new future of younger people that can have that sort of entrepreneurial spirit, but also paired with like an understanding of culture and how things are read and understood. You talk about your work, this idea of like design that like listens and feels. I think that's a wonderful way to describe it. You also talked about that idea of like what do you call it? Like social searching?
Social listening.
Social listening, same thing. It's not necessarily a language that a lot of designers really use about themselves, but I think it's a really important way of like showing your value as the human in the whole thing, because you are able to listen and interpret and feel it and like really actually feel something and sit with it. And I think that's a really, like, for me, I was really inspired just thinking about that. And I think that just then also ties into the process, because the process can be, probably from an outside perspective, quite messy, because it's just like, you can do that and then it starts to funnel in, it goes out again. But, I think from maybe when you were starting in your career to now, I just want to ask you about like the gap between what you made, but also what you wanted to make. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, it's probably something that designers feel forever on any kind of project, because you have the idea at the beginning of the brief, and then for whatever reason, it goes a certain way, whether that's just like a technical thing, a skills thing, a time thing, a client thing, whatever. How do you deal with that feeling from the ideation phase of the brief, where you've kind of got excited about where it could go, to then the day you hand it over, and there may be a gap between where you thought it was going to be. How do you deal with that?
I think it's definitely about kind of using it as a learning curve and kind of be interested in why it went down that. Like I said, I'm a problem solver, I always have been. And it's like interesting in how a brief, kind of like when I mentioned before, a brief can be seen so many different ways sometimes and interpreted in so many different ways. And I think it's really interesting. Yeah, it is used as a learning curve, and people can kind of propose these ideas and bounce back on feedback and be collaborative. But if you don't have kind of that set skill set, so for example, 3D, or your motion isn't up to scratch, or you're not super confident in color theories, and just really small intricate details, if they don't play and kind of build up, and again, it comes with experience, it comes with working on a variety of projects, but it's how you can take that and reapply it onto a different project, or even a self-initiated project. You might come away from something and think, oh, I really wanted to nail this skill, but I wasn't able to in the time frame, I wasn't able to in the budget, I wasn't able to XYZ. Let's go away. I've got a week with not much work going on, especially as a freelancer, if you're in the studio, maybe at nighttime, weekends, things like that, it can feel different. You can go away and learn that, or work on a project yourself and kind of build that up. And that's something I've done myself with motion. Like, I've started tapping into it, and I've had this conversation with someone the other week, and kind of wanting to develop that more. But I used a lot of lockdown to kind of in that 5-6 years ago now to kind of start that and really kick that off, and even little skills that I've learned then have made. I've been able to add kind of that skill set into if clients say, "Can we make it move?" for example, and things. It's like, yeah, I can, and I will be super open with them. That isn't my skill set right now. I am developing it, and I'm developing, and I think that's super interesting to kind of lean into that and lean into that, constantly be learning and constantly be developing, even on the job, to kind of bridge that gap if the the outcome isn't the shiny kind of mood board, but it is a thing that the client is happy with. That is always the key. The key at the end of a project of kind of success is the happiness of the client and things like that.
Do they share that through just, is that something that they share continuously as the product is out there in the world? Like, do you have like a kind of session at the end where you go like, feedback, how's it going?
I do a lot of my clients on WhatsApp and things like that. So it's really low key. And especially if I know that it's going to be a nice kind of working kind of relationship, even past
that's it. It is a relationship, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's very much,
so it's like, it's nice to see like the positive feedback in kind of a chilled way. I'm not like the one to sit and be like, okay, tell me everything, tell me how well I was and how amazing I am, because
here's a survey, a 5-minute survey. If you can fill that out about my performance.
And like, people like chat about testimonials, and even that gives me a bit of a like, oh, I couldn't like sit and
everyone's
read.
experience is different, so someone's testimonial is not necessarily how I'm going to experience it.
Exactly.
It's like when you go to a restaurant, when you're looking for restaurants near you, don't go to the one that's got the best review, like the best rating. Go to the one that's got the second best rating, because that's probably the real one.
Exactly.
But there you go. What the testimonials really tell you, I don't know, credibility to some level. We're doing this series because we think the industry needs more honest voices, and on that, what do you think the creative industry is getting wrong with how it presents itself to people who are maybe considering it?
I have these conversations quite a lot with people, and how people kind of, not in a gossipy way, but how people can kind of present themselves and want to better present themselves online or in person or across LinkedIn, socials, however it feels and looks. And I think there's just that element of being yourself and having personality within that really will stand you out from the next kind of person. The ever-growing conversation about AI, there's the ever-growing conversation about it being really quick and easy just to type in a prompt into things and you get your product, but it'll start looking the same. So I've always wanted to lead by myself personally, is my personality, and putting that into how I offer myself into the industry. And I always have done since university. I've always kind of opened myself up into different environments and within the industry and events and things like that. And
so this is like advice for anyone that's kind of thinking about starting their design career, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And definitely just all about kind of getting out there and really pushing yourself forward into that. And it might seem terrifying, and it might seem you stepping into a room full of people that know each other and you don't know them and they don't know you, but that's all right, because they were in that position one time. And I always, if people often message me, and whether that is across, because on LinkedIn I'm quite chatty in terms of giving advice and sharing my experiences. So they kind of message me and ask that advice, ask for kind of how can I establish myself as someone self-employed or wanting to look into the right job, or even just in the industry and engaging more. And it's just about getting out there and being yourself and not putting a front on one side and then walking away from an event and being a completely different person. Of course, it's good to have like you laugh and you joke and you think with your mates and your family and things like that, versus within the industry and things. But I've got quite a nice crossover where some of the industry that years ago were just industry and now mates. So it's a nice kind of balance, and that has always kind of pushed that positive outlook within growing and moving and navigating the creative industry. And yeah, so I would say just be you and push that out there more in a confident way, and not let that kind of self-worth and self-doubt kind of get in the way of that.
I think that idea of suppression can come in, and that can be an enemy, can't it? And then I've definitely done that in my career. I remember going to I don't want to get in trouble with people that I still respect and know, but I remember going to a pitch at a very high, like the kind of project that you could say to your parents and they'd be like, wow, that's really impressive, you've made a really good choice there, that's amazing that you're working on those sorts of projects. And I went to the pitch, I was on my way to the pitch, and I was working with someone who I think they were feeling a bit nervous about it. And that's how I reflect on it now. And they said, oh, are you not changing? I was like, what? Like, are you gonna wear that? I was like, what am I like looked down, I was like, oh yeah, I suppose I didn't I didn't think about that. And they're like, it's all right, there's an H&M on the way. I was like, okay. And I like went and bought like a jacket and kept the tag in, obviously, and shirt. I like got changed and went to the pitch, but I was so nervous because I was like really conscious about like dressing up and trying to like play a part. And we didn't win the project, and I don't think it actually had anything to do with the work. I genuinely think it was because they were expecting the real me, the me who had got through the first round of pitch, when this other person wasn't involved, and they were expecting that person to show up. So they'd hired a creative team for a reason. And then for some reason I'd like doubted that, come in looking a bit more corporate. And I don't know, like I reflect on it now thinking that's probably why because there was this moment where there was like the authenticity of myself and how I present changed. I'm also, you might not even hear it in my voice, I'm actually from the north of England originally, but because I moved to Oxford when I was like in my late teens, I totally changed my accent because fucking no one understood me. But if I could have gone back to like 15, 6-year-old me, I'd be like, don't change who you are, just like that is you, and own it. I'm half Scottish, for God's sake. Like, I get heckled in Scotland because they obviously don't. I was born in Edinburgh, and like it's mad, isn't it? But I think like all those things that you can do to yourself because you think that's how you're going to get in the room. I'm like, because I've had enough time to fail in that way, not fail, but like go through that experience, seeing you just being you, and seeing people out there just like, maybe it's a generational thing, I don't know, but like that confidence to be like, I'm not suppressing myself. Like, I'm not going to go and work for a company where I have to wear a suit because that's the like culture or whatever. Like, I'm not drinking at the moment, and I'm finding it really difficult being in social events because I really realized like how much I relied on that beer to like make me. Now I get to like 9 o'clock and I'm at like a thing and I'm like, I'm really tired, I want to go to bed now. Whereas if I was still drinking, I'd be like, yeah, let's stay out till 11 or whatever. So yeah, I think that I'm so glad you said that about kind of being true to yourself, and it's definitely something that we probably hear and see a lot of. It's something that people will typically say, like try to present who you are because that is who someone wants to really employ. End of the day, like anyone can make a good output. Because they could either prompt it or they could like learn a skill on YouTube, or they could charge 2 hours but spend 8 on it, whatever. But really and truly what they're hiring is, and what they want is you and what you bring to it, and like your perspective and your background, your culture, and everything that makes you who you are.
100%.
Yeah, I think it goes back to that idea of like design is all about listening and seeing. I love that. And I think and if you're not listening and if you're not seeing enough stuff, then you're doing yourself a disservice. So, that's really good advice for anyone that's really starting out. don't worry about trying to get somewhere. Don't worry about trying to impress people with the work you're doing. Just remember that what is impressive is you're making stuff every day, and like that's what you get paid for. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry to say that so basically, but how
No.
fucking cool is that?
Exactly. And I said this, literally, I said this yesterday to someone. I was just like sat working, developing a couple of colours, really simple stuff. Say simple, but yeah, colour schemes. And I was like, wow, how am I sat here looking at colours,
Yeah.
having that, and that's my job. How is that a thing? Like, it just really made me laugh. And I sat back and I was like, wait a minute, I'm getting paid to look at some colours, pair them together, see how they feel and match. And like, that is the job. And it just feels, it feels really simple and really silly. But in essence, like, it is such a cool kind of career to be in. And sometimes when it's stressful and you're unsure and you've got them second thoughts and second guessing thoughts and all of that, you're thinking, oh, am I doing the right thing? But then you do, on the flip side, you sit back and think, no, this is really cool because I've put something out there and I'm looking at colours and it's fun and it's exactly what it should be and how it should feel.
My 4-year-old understands what I do, which I think is so cool. I remember growing up, my dad was a head teacher. That was quite easy to understand what that was because you're in the school. So if you got a parents teacher, you're like, I know what a teacher is, or like a police officer or a plumber, or like a lot of jobs that are like, you know, like something's broken, I need it fixing kind of jobs, or a doctor or a nurse. Like I think everyone understands that. But there are also so many people in jobs where they must find it really difficult to explain to their kids what they do. Like you'll find, I remember like my neighbor, I never really knew what his dad did, but it was like something in IT. Like my 4-year-old, like I show him stuff. I'm like, yeah, so there's this restaurant. It looked like this. They asked me to make it look better because their food was really good, but it like no one really like was buying it or whatever. It's like, okay, yeah. It's like, so then we made it look like this, and then we chose like these colors and stuff. And he's like, cool. And then now like he's playing, and he'd be like, Dad, I'm designing it. And I'm like, yes, you are. Like so sweet, like building bricks and stuff. He's like, I've designed this train track. I've designed it. Like, you bloody have. But that's what I mean. Like it should be as simple like that to explain to anyone, and it should be as accessible as that. And I think, with this whole series that we're doing and these interviews that we're going to be doing with different people, I hope that we can start to, we're not the only people that are doing this. Let's also say that. But the more people that are doing that and opening people's eyes and having these honest conversations, no professional guard up. It's really important. And like, this has been a great conversation to kick things off. Maybe we should do more of these as the series goes on. Yeah,
I think so. Little check-ins, little spurts of knowledge. Yeah,
exactly.
Definitely.
Of course, we probably should talk about Claude design at some stage and have him sort of, fool around pretending that we know what we're talking about. We spent the last couple of weeks just talking, and maybe a month or so, talking about what the series could be, and it's going to become in person. There's going to be events, there's going to be things like that along the way, which is really exciting. But on a personal level, Yas, where is the best place people can go to find you as a designer?
You can check out my socials. I'm on Instagram at yas.design, so YAS.design. Or my website is yasbanks.co.uk. So just my name. So that's where you can find me, and then everything else is kind of linked on there if you want to keep up to date with things.
Yeah, and look, if anyone's ever in Manchester and they want to meet with us and talk about anything like that, we're trying to build that creative community and
100%.
Talking honestly about stuff. We can do in-person things, and if anyone obviously wants to have a chat like this and get into it and think about things they maybe haven't thought about for a long time, like school, then we'll see you on the next one. So yes, it's been a pleasure.
Yes, you too. Thank you
Catch
very
you
much.
later.
Cheers.